Hello all, this is Matt bringing you some of my favourite features from the world of Microsoft Power Platform. So today we're going to have a look at Canvas apps in Power Apps and look at some of the use of the OnStart event and some simple use of using galleries to display some content. So Canvas apps are one of my favourite things to use within Power Apps because you've got complete control over the look and the feel and the way that it works, and you can make some really good solutions using Power Apps and Canvas apps in particular. So we're going to start off by going to the Explorer, and we're going to click on Power Apps and let that load up. There's two types of apps broadly in Power Apps. You've got your Canvas apps and your model-driven apps. We'll look at model-driven apps another time. Essentially, they are built. The app is built for you from your data structure. And there's no ability to change it, but Canvas apps are where the sort of fun is, if you like, because you can do some really creative things within Canvas apps. So you can see down here on the Make Your Own App, we'll create a Canvas app from blank. We can go for the standardized tablet or phone format. Power Apps can be used all over the place. They don't have to be used on mobile phones. It's obviously useful to use them on mobiles because you've got access to things like GPS and cameras and things like that, which enable you to do more things. But you can show your apps on desktop. It can be used anywhere essentially. We'll stick. In fact, we'll go for the phone layout, just for a slightly smaller screen. Just call this Demo App 3. We'll go ahead and create our application now. So the idea of the OnStart event is for us to be able to set up some things that we need to be in place throughout the app when the app first launches. So that could be some navigation that you don't want to hard code in. You want to build that as a data source essentially and then use that throughout it. Maybe you want to set some parameters like some color values that you want to use throughout your app. We'll have a look at the different ways we can do that. So I don't need to start up information. Let's get past that. Okay, so here we are on our canvas. Another time I'll spend a bit more time exploring what all these toolbars and things do, but we'll start off nice and simple. So this is what we'll see on our mobile phone essentially at the moment, so it's blank right now. You can see on the left hand side here within the Screen Explorer, any application within Canvas apps is built up of a number of screens. So they always give us our first screen to get us going. I'm going to double click on that. I'm going to call that the home screen. Okay, I'm just going to create a couple of extra screens just for the purpose of this demonstration. I'm going to call this one the search screen, and also have a details screen as well. Okay, so we'll just put something in place so we can see what those screens are when we switch to them later on. So I'm just going to quickly insert a label here just as a makeshift header. Let's drag that up to be the right kind of size, and we'll call this one home. Put that in the center, make it a bit bigger, maybe 40 points, something like that. That'll do for now. Let's change the colours to make it a little bit nicer as well. Give it a purple background and a white foreground. Okay, so that'll do just to identify the screen. I'm going to do a Control-C to copy that because I want to come to my search screen and my details screen and paste that in. So search screen, let's call that one search. And with our details screen, we'll just call that details. So I've now got three screens in place. No way to change between them at the moment, but home, search and details. So you can see above the screens I've got this app icon here. So this is really the root of the app. This gives me the settings for the root of my app here essentially. So what happens when the app starts up. I'm going to pull down my function bar a little bit at the top here. You can see that the property that's been selected when I selected the app is the OnStart event for the app. This is where I want to explore a little bit. So I actually want to build myself a small data source to drive a little menu that I'm going to put in here. So I'm going to use the clear collect function. You can see we've got IntelliSense telling us how to use this. So the clear collect does two things. It will clear the collection and it will build us a new collection. And a collection is essentially a tabular data source, if you like. So it's a grid. You think of it as a mini grid of values that we can use for a variety of purposes. So I'm going to call this main menu items and put in comma. So now we can pass in the items that we want to display within that main menu items. So I'm going to have a couple of properties. I'm going to have a label in my menu. It's going to show home, and then I'm going to have a screen that I go to when you click on that item to take us to the relevant screen for that home item, which will make sense in a second. So if I start typing home, you can see I can actually pick the home screen there, and it matches up in green for me. It shows me that that's the home screen that I'm on. So that's the first item in my menu. So copy that, make life easy for myself. We'll put a comma in there, and a comma in there, and we'll close off the formula there. So doing a clear collect to build a collection, calling our collection main menu items, and it's built up of three objects essentially at the moment. We've got home, we'll call this one search, and this one we'll call details. So of course we want to go to the relevant screens for those as well. So let's just take our home screen from here. This one's to be our search screen, which is there with a different colour, and this one will be our details screen. Okay, great. So we built ourselves a little table, or we'll build a table when this runs, which will give us some items that we can then show as a little mini navigation. So I'm going to put a semicolon on the end of that just to terminate it. And also want to build myself just a simple colour property. Lots of other ways of going about this, as you'll see in some of my other videos. So I'm going to use the set command, and it's asking me for a variable name, and I'll call this one colour one. I'm going to use the American formatting name for colour. It's easier to type and tends to be prevalent in programming languages anyway. So what am I going to set that to? I'm going to set that to a colour value, so we can tell it that we want an RGBA colour value, red, green, blue, and A is for the opacity of the colour. So let's go put the brackets in that we need. So we'll go for something like a nice blue, so say 120, 180, 210, and then we'll have one for the opacity or the alpha value, as it said. Okay, so just to recap on this, so when the app starts, I'm going to build myself a collection, which will be my little mini navigation, where I'm defining a label to show and something to do when you click on the label, i.e. go to one of the different screens. And I'm also setting myself a colour one property, which is this colour here, which I've just defined. And you can see it gives me a nice little preview of what that colour is as well. It's kind of a blue colour. Now, this little tip here is quite useful because obviously we don't actually want to run the app from scratch to generate all this stuff. So we need a little shortcut to actually run the OnStart event. And it just so happens that we have, click on this button here, we can actually run the OnStart, so we can emulate the idea of the app starting up with a click. So let's do that. Doesn't appear like anything happened, but it has run that and it has built those constructs for us. So let's just shrink that down for a minute. So coming back to my home screen now, I'm going to have a look at putting in a gallery. So galleries are really useful for repeating values, for building out custom cards for repeating values. You can get some pre-built ones at the top here with the images in, or you can have blank ones down the bottom as well. I'm going to go for a blank one just to show you how to build one of these out. So let's just size this appropriately, snap it to that position there. So we can see it's asking us, okay, what do we want to hook this gallery up to? What do we want it to show? So if we pull data through from any other location like SQL or SharePoint, for example, then we'd have those here as well. But you can see that it's showing me my collection that I built just a second ago, my main menu items collection. So let's click on that. Let's hook it up to the main menu items collection, which is done on the right. You can see that's happened. But again, nothing's happened particularly on the on control itself. But here's where we can actually hook it to some actual items. So click on this and we'll put a text label into the card. There we go. So we can actually see that it's brought through one of the values. Let's put some space, drag this down, create some space. And we will actually shrink that one down. There we go. So we can see each of the values is coming through now. So on the left, if I come back to my home screen, you can see this is the overall gallery here. So let's make that a little bit taller. And these are my individual cards. So there's probably a little bit too much white space happening in there. Let's pull that up to the left and shrink that down, make it a little bit more concise. Okay, so you can see it's pulled through the 3 items which I built into my little table. Another little top tip here as well, if I come up to expand out my function bar area at the top and actually click into the main menu items table or collection, I can click on this little drop down and I can actually see the structure of it, of what it looks like. There's another place you can do that as well, which is quite useful to just have a look at what columns there are if it's a more complicated structure than just a simple list that we've got here. Okay, so that's good. What we just need now is a control to actually go to the page. So what I'll do, shrink that down a little bit. We'll put an icon in there. I've got lots of different icons to choose from. We'll go for one of these right-hand chevrons that seem to be popular. We'll pull that out to the right. We'll wait for the alignment arrow, little red line to show us that we're centralized. And that's good, that's fine. So we want this here. So you can see if I click on this label, because we're in a gallery that might have one item, might have 1,000 items coming through, the properties of the item have to be referred to as this item dot property essentially. So that's this item dot label. This has just got a default value in at the moment, but what we want to do when you click on that chevron is of course navigate to one of the other pages. So we need to put a simple function in to do that. So we start to type navigate. And where do we want to navigate to? Well, it's going to be a property of this item, so we need to start typing this item. You can see actually it's been smart enough to realise that this item has got 2 properties, a label and the screen property underneath. So we can just choose this item.screen since that's the one that we want to jump to when we click on that individual item. So we'll close it off with brackets. So just to recap on this gallery then, so we've got 3 items coming from our collection. This is our label, this item.label, and then this one we're, although it's this item.screen, we're wrapping it in a navigation control to say, okay, when I click on that, I actually want you to go and do something. I want you to navigate to a different location, whatever the screen that gets passed back from our data source might be. Okay, so I'm just going to copy this, this control so we can paste it into our other pages. Come to our search screen, paste that in there. Just align that to the top, snap it to the top there. Details screen, paste that in there as well and do the same thing, just line that up. Close these down. Okay, so let's have a look and see what that looks like in practice. I'm going to come up here to the preview button to put it into play mode. So we're on the details screen at the moment. If I click on the arrow, you can see I've gone to the home screen. This arrow, I've gone to the search screen. Here I've gone to the details screen. So it's not how I would necessarily go about building navigation. We'll look at components in another video, which is a better way of going about it. But this just illustrates the usefulness of being able to create a collection right at the start of the app build process to then use throughout the application itself. So the final thing I just wanted to show on this this quick video really was that we set that color value as well. We were able to use that color value throughout the app. So we come back to the home screen and we look at this header that we set to purple. Let's make that the blue that we set as our app color initially right at the start. So one of the things that's easy to overlook on the properties panel here on the right for our header text box essentially, we've got the obvious stuff like the font and the font size and the font weight and whether it's centralized and that kind of thing. But you'll notice when I hover over these, there's a little surround around the name. So these are buttons as well as labels for when we want to do things a little bit more advanced. So coming down here to the color, if I click on color, you can see that it's now sort of switched from being sort of the color picker type arrangement to actually doing things programmatically. So let's just change this to the fill color. Just find it. Fill, I guess is what we want. So this is our purple color, I believe. Yeah, there we go. There's the purple color. So we're just going to do away with hard coding it, and we're going to tell it that actually we want the color of this control to be our parameter that we set at the beginning. So I'm going to start typing COL for color, and there's color 1, which is our blue, And there we go. I've set the control to be that blue now. So I can do that on every screen as well. For the purposes of this demonstration, I don't necessarily need to, but you can see if we then slave that to the color 1 value, if we wanted to rebrand this at any point, all we need to do is go back to the app root. We could then change that value to anything that we needed it to be, rerun the OnStart, and then we would have a change across the board for all the places where we used that color. There's lots and lots of other ways to do that as well. We've only defined kind of a single color there. We might like to define multiple colors to build ourselves up a bit of a palette for how we're going to use the colors. We might also like to build a collection of color values rather than having them individually set. So lots of different ways of going about it, but this has illustrated the point I wanted to make within this video here of how to use galleries to show multiple items, and 3 little tips around interacting with those as well. So hopefully you found that one useful. That's really just starting to get to grips with some of the early stage setup work that you do when you build Canvas apps in Microsoft Power Apps, and lots more little tips to come on that. There's so much to this product. It's growing all the time. It's hard to keep track of it. So hopefully you did find that interesting, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video.